At 8:41 on a Monday morning, Victor called me into the glass conference room and fired me in front of 6 people. He did not use the word fired at first. He said my role had become misaligned with the direction of the company. Then he said my attitude had become disruptive. Then, when I asked whether the board had approved the termination of a finance officer 3 days before the external audit, his smile disappeared. "Leah," he said, loudly enough for the assistants outside to hear, "this is exactly the kind of insubordination I am talking about. Pack your things by 10. Security will escort you." The room went silent in that careful corporate way, where everybody pretends to study their notebooks because looking at the victim feels too dangerous. I could feel my face burning, but I kept my hands flat on the table. "Please put that instruction in writing," I said. Victor laughed. "You are no longer in a position to request anything." That was his first mistake. I had worked at Rivermark Logistics for 7 years. I started as an accounts assistant, the person who chased missing receipts and corrected petty cash forms that looked like grocery lists. By the time Victor became Chief Operations Officer, I was Finance Compliance Lead, responsible for checking whether major payments matched approved procurement procedures. Victor arrived with expensive shoes, louder opinions, and a habit of calling every control process red tape. For the first 6 months, everyone admired him.
He spoke fast.
He knew how to flatter clients. He never entered a room without making it feel as if something important was about to happen. Then the emergency purchases began. At first it was small. A spare parts supplier paid through a special approval. A fuel contract extended without competitive quotations. A warehousing invoice split into 3 smaller payments, each just below the threshold requiring tender committee review. When I asked questions, Victor gave me answers that sounded impressive and meant nothing. "Leah, operations cannot wait for finance to admire forms. Leah, this is a business, not a museum. Leah, you need to learn strategic flexibility." Strategic flexibility became his favorite phrase for breaking rules. The real problem appeared on a Thursday afternoon when I was reviewing a batch of invoices from a company called Northline Supplies. In 3 months, Northline had billed Rivermark more than any long-term vendor we had. Their invoices were neat, their tax details looked valid, and their delivery notes had signatures. But the signatures bothered me. For different delivery notes had been signed by the same warehouse officer on days when he was recorded as being on leave. I checked the vehicle tracking reports. 2 supposed deliveries had happened on days when no Northline truck entered our main depot. Then I checked the supplier registration file. Northline had been approved in record time, with only one internal sponsor, Victor. That evening, after most staff had gone home, I printed the exceptions report and took it to him. He did not read it. He leaned back in his chair and looked at me as if I had brought him a childish drawing. "You are overreaching," he said. "These payments need to be suspended pending verification."
"No."
"Then I need your written approval to release them despite the discrepancies." He sat forward slowly. "Do you understand how replaceable you are?" That was the moment I stopped trying to persuade him. People like Victor do not fear warnings. They fear records. I went back to my desk and began documenting everything. Not emotionally, not dramatically, just clean evidence. Invoice numbers, approval chains, delivery inconsistencies, system timestamps, email requests, exceptions I had raised, responses I had received. The company had a compliance policy that most managers ignored because it was buried inside the staff portal under a section nobody visited unless they were onboarding. I had read it. The policy said any suspected procurement manipulation above a certain value had to be copied to the Audit and Risk Committee Secretary, not only to the line manager. It also said an employee who raised a concern in good faith could not be dismissed, demoted, or threatened before preliminary review. Victor apparently had not read that page. 2 weeks before the audit, he tried a softer approach. He invited me to lunch at a hotel near the office. He ordered sparkling water and told me he respected my thoroughness. "But you must understand politics," he said. "The board wants growth. Growth requires speed. If you keep blocking operations, you will look like the problem." "I am not blocking operations. I am asking for proof of delivery." And I am telling you the proof is sufficient. Then sign off on the exceptions.
His jaw tightened.
You like hiding behind paperwork? No, I said. I like surviving paperwork. That afternoon, he sent an email accusing me of delaying critical supplier payments and creating operational risk. He copied the CEO. He did not know I had already sent my exception summary to the Audit and Risk Committee secretary, as required by policy, and requested confidential guidance. The reply came the next morning from a woman named Ms. Adongo, who chaired the committee. It was only 2 lines. Thank you for documenting this. Continue to preserve all relevant records and do not alert any parties beyond necessary operational communication. I read that email 3 times. Then I printed it and locked the copy in my desk. From then on, Victor performed confidence. He walked past my desk without greeting me. He reassigned 2 finance clerks who helped me reconcile supplier accounts. He told department heads that my unit was causing delays. When I entered meetings, people became careful. I could feel the office choosing safety over truth. The Friday before the audit, he called me at 6:12 p.m. Release the Northline payments tonight. I cannot release them without clearance. You are refusing a lawful instruction. I am refusing an undocumented exception. Then Monday will be very uncomfortable for you. I slept badly that weekend, not because I doubted the evidence, but because evidence does not stop humiliation. It only gives humiliation somewhere to go afterward. On Monday, he fired me. Security came to my desk at 9:03. One guard looked embarrassed. The other looked bored. I packed slowly. My mug, my notebook, a framed photo of my sister's children, and the spare flat shoes I kept under the desk. Victor stood nearby with crossed arms. Company documents day, he said. Of course, I said. He watched me log out of my computer. He did not know that the external audit team had already been granted read-only access to the finance folders at 7:30 that morning. He did not know Ms. Adongo had scheduled a closed audit and risk meeting for noon. He did not know that every file he thought he could bury had already been preserved by IT under litigation hold. At the elevator, he leaned close and said, "Next time, learn when to keep quiet." I looked at him and said, "Next time, read the policy." For the first time that morning, he looked uncertain. I went home, changed out of my work clothes, and sat at my kitchen table waiting for my hands to stop shaking. At 12:47, my phone rang. It was Ms. Adongo. "Leah, I am sorry for how this morning was handled," she said. "Do not discuss the matter with anyone yet. You will receive formal communication by close of business." At 3:16, Rivamark's CEO sent me an email. My termination had been suspended pending board review. I was to remain on paid administrative leave. I was instructed not to return to the office until contacted. Victor lasted 4 more days. The audit team found that Northline supplies had been registered using a residential address. Its director was Victor's cousin, though the relationship had not been disclosed. Several deliveries had either been exaggerated or never made. Payment approvals had been split intentionally to avoid tender review. Worse, there were internal messages showing Victor pressuring procurement staff to stop asking finance questions. The same people who had looked down at their notebooks during my firing suddenly remembered how to call me brave. The CEO requested a meeting 2 weeks later. I agreed on the condition that Ms. Adongo attend.
Victor was gone by then.
Officially, he had resigned to pursue other opportunities. Unofficially, everyone knew he had been escorted out after refusing to hand over his company laptop. 2 procurement officers were suspended. The supplier was blacklisted. The board commissioned a broader review. The CEO cleared his throat when I entered the meeting. "Leah, the company regrets the manner in which you were treated." I let the sentence sit there. Regret is easier than accountability. He continued. "We would like you to return. We are creating a strengthened compliance function reporting directly to the Audit and Risk Committee. We would like you to lead it." 3 months earlier, that offer would have felt like victory. Sitting there, I understood something sharper. A company that needs you only after you survive its abuse has not become noble. It has become exposed. "I will consider it," I said, but not under the same reporting structure, not without a written apology, and not without protection for the staff who cooperated with the review. Ms. Adongo smiled slightly. The CEO did not. 2 days later, I received the letter. Not perfect,
Not warm.
but written. It acknowledged that my termination had violated internal policy and that my concerns had been raised in good faith. More importantly, the 2 clerks who had helped me were reinstated to their original roles. I returned the next Monday, not to applause, not to music, not to some movie version of justice. I returned to a quiet office where people pretended not to stare. My desk had been cleaned. My mug was still in the box I had packed. I placed it back beside my monitor. At 10 o'clock, I held my first compliance briefing. I did not mention Victor. I did not need to. His absence was in the room like a missing wall. I opened the policy file, looked around the table, and said, "From today, every exception leaves a trail. If the decision is clean, the trail will protect you. If it is not, the trail will find you." Nobody laughed. 6 months later, Rivermark passed its follow-up audit with conditions. Northline never recovered the contract. Victor tried to join a competitor, but references have a way of becoming very honest when boards are frightened. People still ask me whether it felt good to watch him fall. The truth is more complicated. It felt good to be believed. It felt good to know that the records had spoken when people were too afraid to. It felt good to walk through the same doors I had been pushed out of, carrying the one thing Victor had underestimated from the beginning. Not anger, not luck, evidence.